Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. If you haven't joined us before, I'm a sales coach and trainer. I work with both individuals and organizations internationally to do one thing and one thing only: help them get measurable and sustainable sales increases. And I founded the Sales Pro Network a little over 3 years ago to elevate the profession of sales, to give salespeople a place to network with each other, to ask questions and get great advice. And if you've joined us before, you know that every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we either do a live training or a live interview with somebody who can add value to the profession of sales. And I'm very excited to talk to today's guest because once again, my friends, I've done it for you. Our guest is the founder of Cellivators. I hope that, did I pronounce that right? Cellivators, good. I'm dying to hear about that, which is a pioneering program crafted to redefine sales success, integrating cutting edge AI. I love learning about that. And with the irreplaceable value of human connections. In her career, she's closed, get this, over $74 million worth of business personally. It's my pleasure to introduce today's guest, Denise Murtha Bachmann. Good morning, Denise.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here. And by the way, I talk about all the time, we need to elevate sales as a noble profession again. So I love that you talk about that.
You know what? It's only because I've been doing it for so long. This is my 48th year in sales. And, there was a lot of scumbaggery going on back then. And there's still some. And, salespeople have a bad reputation for the liars and cheats and thieves. And they're still out there. I don't think it's as bad as it used to be when I first started out. But there's plenty of people who give us a bad name. So I think sales is a noble profession. I believe nothing happens until something gets sold. You know, the old saying, build a better mousetrap and the world will beat it back to your door. Probably not. Build a better mousetrap and find a sales team who can get out there and sell it. That's what's going to do it. So before we get started with the 8 million questions I have for you, because AI, I think, is absolutely part of everybody's present and future. Can you give us maybe the 2 to 3 minute background of a version of your background, what brought you up to this point?
Yeah. So you already heard that I have been in sales for over 30 years. I think you included that, Jeff, as part of your intro. But I spent the latter part of that in tech sales. And I think the differentiator between myself and my competitors or the other sales reps was that I actually understood the products I was selling, and I could as well understand the business outcomes. So it enabled me to have these credible conversations with the buyers in which I didn't have to bring a software engineer in. So I focused primarily in the latter half in AI, automation, and machine learning. And so I could have the conversation, which fostered this enthusiasm for AI. So I quit the corporate world. I asked my husband, hey, do you think it's okay if you support me if I go off on my own gig and do what I want to do? And he's like, okay, I guess. I don't know what that means. And so I launched Success with AI. And then shortly thereafter, I launched my Cellivators program. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm here in Houston, 2 beautiful kids. And yeah, that's about as exciting as it gets.
Outstanding. So can we start with just the definition of AI? What actually is AI? And also, you're also well-versed in machine learning. So what's AI, what's machine learning, and what's the difference between the two?
Yeah, so you've got AI, which is, I think, the overarching umbrella, which, by the way, did you know that AI has been around since even as early as 1956? I think that's the exact date, where you had MIT, IBM, and a third partner. They came together for the first AI potential collaboration. So that's super cool. It's been around a lot longer than we give it credit for. We all think that it all launched, a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago with Gen AI. It's been around a lot longer. Anyway. So AI is the umbrella. Machine learning, automation, various other solutions all fall under that umbrella. AI is really taking machine learning to the next level. So machine learning is algorithms that are based by data that you bring in. It enables you to take that data and do something great with it, right? So you bring it in. So for example, if you think about in terms of software and selling software, you've got opportunities out there where you have downtimes that occur within a data center. To ensure that those downtimes don't happen, you put in machine learning technology so it understands the behavior. Once it understands that behavior, it will then notify you when something is outside of that behavior. It could be something above or below the threshold, whatever that is, and it will notify you accordingly. And then adding the AI is adding intelligence around it. And if there is something that's happening within an environment, how do you solve to that problem intelligently? And that is what AI can do. And then of course, everyone knows what automation is. We're all leveraging automation today. So.
Yep. So I did not know it was that old. I knew it was not just from a year and a half ago, but I didn't realize it was from when I was born. There's a lot of concern right now, Denise. I get calls pretty regularly, and I'm guessing you do too, because you're an expert in this area. But there's a lot of concern from salespeople about AI replacing us being replaced by robots. Most of us have seen the Terminator, where Skynet takes over. Should we be concerned?
All right. So this is a hard question to answer because I think the answer is yes, we should be a little concerned. I do think that AI is going to take over a lot of roles, unfortunately. In fact, there's even talk about, because it could potentially take over so many roles, that we might even move to a UBI, which is universal basic income, right? Whether we do that or not, I don't really know. But I do think we can prevent some of that right now. And I think while it will take over some of our roles, it will enable us to shift our focus on the much more innovative type of activities that will allow us to be more creative and actually be more effective with our clients and our buyers today. So do I think it is going to take us over? Yes, I do. Unfortunately, will it completely take us over? No, I don't think. But what it will do is cause us to think outside the box, be more creative and innovative so that we ensure that we as humans are still engaged within the process and still retain some of these roles and not give them up to AI. So there you go.
Yeah. So the answer I've been giving salespeople is I don't believe that AI is going to take over for salespeople anytime soon. It may eventually wipe us out, but I don't think that's happening anytime soon. But I do believe that the salesperson right now who embraces AI is going to excel over the person who does not. By the way, if you're excuse me, if you're watching us live, sorry.
Water.
If you're watching us live, feel free to put questions in the comments and I'll pass them on to our guest, Denise, who is an expert in AI. So how can we use AI to streamline the process of finding and qualifying leads? I'm always looking for leads. Everybody wants qualified leads. How can we use AI to do that?
Oh, well, there's a lot of ways you can do that. So when I talk about, let me first give some context. So you're speaking my language because I talk about AI that should be leveraged in 4 key areas. I think today what we have is a problem with everyone wanting to just adopt an AI technology, right? Because they think it's cool, but they don't really know how to leverage it. And then they have multiple tools that probably do some of the same things. And so you've got not only a lack of knowledge on how to leverage, but then you don't even know which solutions to leverage, and then which one's going to have the greatest impact to the business, right? So get rid of all the noise and chaos, focus on 4 key areas, which is lead nurturing, which is one of them that you just asked about, client nurturing, forecasting, and in customer insights. And I think when we talk about lead nurturing, it's getting those customer insights, gathering customer insights and uber personalizing today. So one thinks when you leverage AI or automation that you take the personalization out of that because now you've created these workflows. And yes, you are creating these workflows that enable you to engage and nurture these potential leads, because as we know, that 5 to 8 touch points no longer exists. It's 15 to 20 touch points. And look, we're all salespeople. We get bored super easily. We also go where the money is. So when a lead takes us a little bit longer to engage with, we kind of just leave it on the back burner. And then, that lead has then fallen through the crack. So to avoid that, leverage an AI solution, but leverage it to not only create and manage through the workflow, but uber personalize. Get to know the person that you are going to prospect. Understand what their potential buying persona is like. What is it, their buying habits? What is it about them that you could connect with? So there's a tool called Crystal Knows, which is super cool. It's an extension to your Chrome. It leverages LinkedIn. It will give you a buying persona for that individual. It'll tell you how they like to engage. And I don't know that it's 100% active, but it's accurate, but it's pretty accurate. So you can leverage tools like that so that you can start to uber personalize and have these human connections and create and foster this human experience that we as buyers, because I'm a buyer, not just a seller, I am a seller and a buyer, that I as a buyer even want. I mean, how many DMs do you get a day that are not personalized and that are just pitch slapping or going through the natural marketing process rather than a true sales, human connection, human experience process?
Yeah, you're jumping ahead. I actually had planned on asking about that. We'll get there eventually because that drives me nuts.
Yes.
You say we can use AI to automate some very routine tasks, which will make our lives easier.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us some examples of things that we can automate using AI?
Yeah. So one of the things is sending out emails, right? When you are lead or client nurturing, either one, when you have 15 to 20 touch points, you should create a workflow where you can allow it to run when you are focusing on higher value activities, right? Now, that being said, there is a fine line. You should allow it to run, but you should still be engaged within the process. So the worst is when you let a workflow run and someone responds to that email or that text or that DM, and you didn't pay attention to that, and all of a sudden that workflow continues through its process. You've just lost that potential prospect, right? So I think you can automate something as simple as the DMs, and maybe not even just the DMs, but the complete workflow. So maybe when you create that workflow, one of them is an email that you might send. In the next stage, it's a phone call that you might make. So the reminder does, you create the email, it flows. Then the next one is the reminder, hey, pick up the phone and make a phone call. The next one is, hey, I'm going to send this text for you. So automate as much of that process, which includes some of the things as that are just simply reminders so that you can physically do that, but do that with still retaining the human element in that process.
Yeah, and that's the key. I certainly am using AI to automate my outreach, but I have to stay incredibly on top of what's going on, because when people do respond, if you're not putting the human in there, then they get that next message and it's like, wait a minute, I just responded with a question and Jeff's saying, yes, we're the greatest at this, or what? I mean, I'm not doing that, but
yes, I get
it. You get it. Yeah,
yeah.
Because we want to use the robots, but we don't want prospects to know that we're using robots because they want to deal with humans. And looks like we have a question for you. Edward Henry wants to know, how do you adopt the management of these touch points and activity with using AI to address the complicated B2B process?
Yeah, so I would say management of that is making sure that when you have to create the workflow yourself. So that's management process number one, right? You physically create that workflow. The second is you review it regularly. So maybe that's once a day, maybe that's, 3 times a week, maybe that's once a week. Who really knows? That's really dependent on how good your workflow is and whether or not you're getting engagement, right? But I would say figure out your own process, but make sure you're engaging with it by reviewing it constantly, whatever constantly means to you. And then you're adapting. So when, for example, as Jeff mentioned, he's worried about when an email comes in and then the next one flows out, right? And we didn't even acknowledge. I mean, making sure that when you see that there is a response or an activity that needs to be taken on based on that recent workflow, that you're shifting then that workflow to accommodate that. So not just the next step, but then all the processes after that, right? I mean, the worst is, again, like you said, Jeff, letting them know that you're actually working with an automation solution. You don't want them to know that.
Yeah, I actually have it on my calendar every day to check in with my automation to see, has somebody responded where I need to say something, rather than letting the robot just send out that next email 3 days or 5 days or whatever the actual time is.
And then actually shifting the rest of the process. Because if you're on a 30-day workflow and now you've gotten someone respond in day 5, which normally doesn't happen, right? But yay for you, right? So day 5, then you got to not only respond, but then how do you shift that workflow so it accommodates that?
Yeah, my workflow actually works that when somebody responds, it stops everything else. It will not send the next message until I get involved, which I think is a good thing, because
That's awesome.
The last thing you want to, I mean, I'm sure that like me, you get these all day long through LinkedIn. It's like, yeah, here's a message. I want to sell you something. Then you respond with, yeah, I'm really not interested. And then a day later, it's like, thanks so much for your interest. And it's like, really? Yeah. Really? I don't know if I mentioned to you when we first met, but I do stand-up comedy on the side. And if I ever am fortunate enough to get a Netflix special, I'm actually going to call it Really?
I love that.
Well, that's how I go through life most of the day, talking to people. It's like, really? So we all know that our chances of closing business increase dramatically when people trust us. And that same trust is necessary if we're going to keep a client. How can AI help us create a tailored experience for each client with the goal of fostering loyalty and trust?
Yeah. So again, when you talk about touch points, it creates you are now in this process where you actually have to touch point with even your client just as much as you would as you're nurturing a lead, right? And to stay top of mind, you need to be providing them resources and you need to be understanding their business. So constantly leveraging AI to give you updates on what's transpiring, what they've been doing recently, how they're leveraging the solutions, and I'm talking technology sales, right? Obviously, there's a little bit of a niche there, but understanding what they're doing and then creating those automation workflows so that you are constantly touch pointing them. You're providing them a resource. I always say, give 3 things before you ask for 1. And that applies even in relation to a client. So you sold them. Now you're done. You're not actually done, but you're done at least with that phase. As you move into the next client phase, then you still got to start back over and give them 3 things before you ask for 1. So making sure that you're constantly giving them pertinent and relevant information to what they're doing today, which means you have to leverage AI to stay on top of all of that. You have to understand their patterns, their buying, whether or not they're, how many times are they engaging with customer support? What are the issues like? What is their sentiment? Are they angry? Are they upset? All of those things are various components that you can leverage to understand how your buyer is progressing or your client is progressing within that client work cycle. Sorry, struggling there. It's Friday morning. And as well, just ensuring that they have the best experience, not only with you, but with the product that you've sold them.
Yeah, I think we all love people who agree with us. So I'm sitting there going, because I completely agree. Give 3 things before you ask for anything. I love sending people articles that help them do their job better.
Mm-hmm.
If I learn something about somebody, about their personal life, like they love to ski, man, I'm Googling right away. What are the best skis? What are the best techniques today? By adding value, that's how you earn the right to actually ask somebody if they want to have a sales conversation.
Yeah, because I actually now say it's not just about know, like, and trust. It's know, like, and trust with credibility. And credibility comes from understanding them, understanding their problems, knowing them as individuals, right? You're building credibility with them so that they actually want to have a conversation and share even more with you. Because the more you know these days, the better you can solve to their problems, but also make them a hero.
Yeah, and I love the word you just used, conversation, not pitch. I actually hate the word pitch. Other than in baseball, salespeople got to stop pitching. I've been in sales a long time, just like you, and we used to pitch. I don't know about in your day, but when I first started out, I sold Encyclopedia Britannica. It was a pitch. I mean, it was not only a pitch; it was a pitch book that they had like the little thing. We would read it word for word, and it was brilliant. It worked great. But today's buyer is well educated, and there's too many options for them to. All they have to do is Google something. Oh, sales trainers Jeff's not returning my call, or he seems no good. Let me Google the 8 million others that I can find in about 0.2 seconds.
And actually, by the way, they're not even leveraging Google anymore. They're using ChatGPT, which takes all of the information from Google into one response based on the prompt that you give, and that saves them so much time and energy. So they now can get it even faster.
Yep. So there's something else that you say. You say that buyers today demand an experience. By the time they come to you, and I'm reading this because it was long, by the time they come to you, they've already done their homework and down selected you as one of their top 3 to 5 choices. You must confirm what they know about you, the company, and product, but then they want to know what partnering with you will be like. They're looking for the experience. And then you go on to say, sales cannot give them an experience if they're focused more on the technology or on the activities that are of less value. When you focus on the higher value activities, sales can cultivate and elevate the human connection within the sales process, and revenue will skyrocket. I love that whole thing. So what are some of the higher value activities that we should be focusing on, and how do we create the experience for the prospect so that they choose to become our customer?
Yeah, so the higher value activities are those things where we as humans have to be engaged. Like, I don't know about you, but it seems like building relationships isn't the problem. Most of us can do that. It's that once we actually engage with them and we've developed a relationship, we don't really know how to move through the process effectively, right? We get lost in how do we get to probable root cause? How do we truly make them heroes within the sales process? So it's helping foster and cultivate those types of skills that I feel like we as individuals, now that we've gone through this digital transformation, right? Now we've got this digital revolution happening. We've been sequestered to our laptops so much that I think we've lost the art of having not just a conversation, but truly getting to this probable root cause understanding. So it's focusing your time and energies there. Then as you've developed this credibility, you understand their root cause problem, you now can solve, you can solve to that. How do you walk them through an entire process where at the end, you've created this win-win for them? So elevating all of those key areas, that's where I think we should be spending our time. Those are higher value activities.
Yes. And as opposed to you who are really focused on the AI and the technology piece that goes along with that, I'm not even, certainly I talk about that, but to me, it's all about the fundamentals. It's how
Yes.
do you have a process that works for you more times than not? How do you lead people through their buying journey, through your sales process? And that's all I ever teach. To me, I often hear from my clients, when are you going to teach my people the advanced stuff? I'm not. They're not doing the fundamentals that I've taught them over the last 3 years. You know what? When your people are doing all the fundamentals that I've been teaching them, then I'll teach them the advanced stuff. And by the way, there's no advanced stuff. Do I have advanced programs? Sure. Except it's the fundamentals program using different words. Because
Yes.
to me, it's the fundamentals that work. And there's some very basic things that we need to do when we're selling. It doesn't have to be fancy. I read the books. I go to the seminars too. I love learning new stuff, but I think the more difficult we make it on ourselves as sellers, the more difficult we're making for the buyer to do business with us.
I
Really,
agree.
it boils down to one last thing that I want to hear what you have to say. It really is about having a conversation, which means we need to know how to ask questions and actually listen, which most salespeople
Yes.
suck at.
Yes. Well, that's what I mean. The basis of my program is yes, let's leverage AI. That's the easy part, right? The hard part is you got to teach everyone how to be more curious, how to actively listen, and then be audible ready. So the only way that you're going to have a real conversation is if you're asking them the questions, you're actively listening to their response, and then, oh, by the way, you're shifting the next question or the next stage within the process because you're audible already enough based on how they've responded and the data that you've collected. I mean, it's just like I use this. It's a stupid example. It is probably the most basic example possible. But even when let's do a quick little role play. So Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm outstanding. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. So tell me, what does outstanding mean to you?
My kids are terrific. My business is great. It's beautiful here on Long Island. The weather's starting to warm up. I happen to live a block from the ocean and I like the warm weather. Life is good.
I love that. I'm having a fabulous day as well because I as well my business is going great, but I want to know what within your business is going so great, if you would share with me.
Sure. Well, business keeps flowing in no matter what I do to turn it away.
Tell me, how's it flowing in? What are you doing so that it flows in?
Oh, got it. So I get business from a couple of different places. One is the networking group that I belong to for the last 18 years. 30% of my business comes from there. Another 30% comes from my use of LinkedIn, and not through direct outreach saying, would you like to buy some sales coaching or sales training? I use content marketing because I want people to raise their hand and call me and say, or reach out to me and say, hey, I really like the stuff you're posting. Can we talk about you coaching me or coaching my team or doing some training? And then the rest of it comes from referrals and speeches.
Awesome. So when you talk about 40% coming from speeches and referrals, how much of that are you having to seek out on your own? Or is that part of that they're coming in to find you for those?
Yeah, it's mostly people reaching out to me. I don't do outreach to do speeches. I'm a Vistage approved speaker, which if you're familiar, there's no better. My ego loves a huge audience with thousands of people, but I'd rather talk to 10 Vistage members all day long. For those of you who don't know what Vistage is, it's a CEO peer group. So in other words, I'm talking to a room full of decision makers. So I love giving those.
So here was where I'm going with all of this. So we're walking out of that role play, but there are a lot of things we could have unpacked. Like we could have talked about Vistage. We could have talked about the difference between 10 versus 100 people, right? Or, there were so many things we could have unpacked that we could have gone back to the 30%ers in each of the two other categories, right? We could have had so much conversation. People suck at doing that these days. Like normally when someone says, hey, how's it going? You respond with, oh, I'm doing great. They'd say, oh, great. I'm doing great as well. And then move on to the next topic, right? Now, I don't know that this example is the one that you obviously want to spend a whole lot of time on. I don't know that that's the case, right? It's all relative and it's based on whatever your goals are and the conversation that you're currently having at hand. But the problem is we don't ask enough questions. And if we can start learning to ask the third, fourth, fifth, sixth line questions, that's where we find the gold. That's where, the first and second line are surface responses that you'll get because you haven't developed the relationship enough for them to actually answer anything deeper than just that yes, no, quick response, right? And we want to take them to a level where we can actually truly understand what their problem is. When they give you the response to their problem, that's usually not the problem, as you know, Jeff. I mean, we usually have to dig really deep to get to probable cause. Once we do that, then we can help them solve to that problem and make them a hero all at the same time, which, by the way, you should ask what it means to be a hero. Maybe not in those terms, but you get what I mean. You want them to partner with you. And those are the things that people suck at these days.
100%. Again, I'm sitting and smiling because I love listening to people who say the same things that I do. I do a substantial amount of my business is one-on-one and group coaching. And, I often find myself giving the same advice to people over and over again. And one of the pieces of advice I give constantly is every time you ask a question, you got to listen actively to the answer. But while you're listening, you should be thinking of, how can I ask the next question based on what they're saying? To me, it's all about the next question and the question after that and the question after that. I don't need to be a brilliant presenter. And look, I'm a professional presenter, but I don't need to be, and I don't need to be a strong closer. I just need to be really great at asking questions and actually caring about the answers that the other person is giving. When we forget that we're not the star of the show, that's when we get into trouble. Salespeople who love to, hey, thank you so much for your time today. Let me tell you why my company is the greatest in the world and why you should be using us. That turns people off immediately. What people are interested in is one thing, themselves, and how we may be able to help them if we can. But when we're just pitching instead of listening, I mean, I often find myself repeating the same things over and over. And one of them is sales is not rocket science. You don't have to be a genius to do this. You only need half a brain to succeed in sales. But if you're friendly and interested in others, rather than let me beat my chest and show you how great I am, you're going to do much better. That's my opinion.
Well, I think too, when you mentioned that you don't even have to be a superior closer, I don't think superior was the word you used, but whatever terminology you used, adjective you used to describe, right? You don't have to be, because it's a logical progression. When you're partnering with them, when you're truly partnering, it becomes a logical progression to get to a close, right? And I think that's what people forget.
Yeah, it's so fun. I often, and I'm guessing you probably do too, I'm asked, come in and teach my people how to close. No, what you really mean is teach my people how to sell. Closing is simply asking a question, the answer to which is, yes, I want to do business with you, or no, I don't want to do business with you. It's just a question. But to me, and I like the way you said it, to me, closing is the natural outcome of the sales process done right. So if you want to be a better closer, learn how to sell, learn all the steps that come before asking for the business, because that's what it's really about. I get those questions Jeff, tell me the magic words that are going to close deals. Great. I teach one particular close and I use that close. I only teach what I do, Denise. I'm guessing you do the same.
Well, we all do that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Here's what I do. Just go do this and you'll be fine. But
just replicate it and you'll be amazing.
Exactly. But it's not about the one question that says yes or no. It's about how do you establish rapport with people, and how do you show them you're interested in them? How do you ask the right questions? What are the right questions to ask? How do you listen actively? And then how do you make a presentation based on what they actually told you? I often love to brag. My oldest daughter is literally a rocket scientist. She's an aerospace engineer, literally a rocket scientist. You don't have to be as smart as Avery to do this. What are Thankful Thursdays?
Yeah, so Thankful Thursdays, I used to do them. I just brought them back because, all right, so I'm going to share something that we might or might not want to go down. I have, normal DNA is, as a salesperson, is that we should also be doing outbounding. And like you do, most of it's all inbound for you. I've shifted my focus to not doing any inbound and outbound and just focusing on inbound, which means I'm developing a lot of content on LinkedIn, right? And so one of those, I used to do Thankful Thursdays when I just didn't really know what else when I was just trying to generate content. But now I do Thankful Thursdays for a couple of reasons. It is because I want people to get to know me more, especially when I'm generating so much content. If it's all sales related, then they don't really get to see me. And the other thing is that that when you're generating so much content anyway, you need to get content out there that resonates with other people. So even if it isn't about me. So Thankful Thursdays is an opportunity for me to ask others what they're thankful for, but also to share what I'm thankful for. I think that, and you and I talked about this, sales, 90% of that is mind space. And if you can come from a place of gratefulness and being appreciative, then you're generating this positive energy. And you usually, when you generate positive energy, you get positive energy back. So Thankful Thursdays is just a way for me to share what I'm thankful for, and as well ask others what they're thankful for and generate just positive energy.
Yeah. And I think I saw a post of yours that said it should be 80% business stuff and 20% that personal stuff so that people
Yes.
do get to know you. Love that.
Yes.
And you also have things for other days of the week. What are some of those?
Oh gosh. So I tried to get creative for days that I ran out of content. I at least had something, should I want to use that? So Mondays are momentum Mondays. Tuesdays are just poll. That's when I try to get a poll in now, mostly because I'm trying to get a better grasp on, it's easy for us to get caught up in what we think is happening, or with a few conversations, the few clients that we have, what we know, they're going through, but does that all pertain to the masses? So trying to get a better understanding of what it really all means to the masses. So I try to do Tuesdays. Wednesdays, I don't even remember what those are. Then Thankful Thursdays. Friday are Fun Fact Fridays. Saturdays or something new Saturdays, and Sunday is Shout Out Sundays.
I love it. I don't have something for every day, but this group is actually a Facebook group with about 1,500, 1,600 salespeople. And I often do sell some stuff Saturday where there's no promoting in the group other than me, because I think I've earned the right. But on a sell some stuff Saturday, any of the members are welcome to come in and say what they sell and who they're looking for and post a link to their website. And it's that kind of thing that I think makes the difference. We're about halfway through. We're talking to Denise Murtha Bachmann, an expert in not only sales but using AI in sales. And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor, which is me. Hi, I'm Jeff Goldberg, the founder of the Sales Pro Network. For nearly 5 decades, I've been selling, managing, coaching, and training salespeople internationally. And I'm often asked for one-on-one or private coaching, but it does involve a substantial investment. For that reason, I've recently developed the Sales Pro Insider Network community. It works like this. We get together twice a month on Tuesday nights from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. At the first session of the month, it's you and me, with me taking your questions and giving you the advice and help you need to both prospect and sell more effectively. At the second session of the month, we'll have a guest coach speaking on a fascinating topic that helps sellers like you and me. And of course, we'll do group coaching then too. The best part is the investment is just $27 for the first month, and there's no long-term contract at all. In fact, you can cancel at any time. Go to crushsalesgoals.com. That's crushsalesgoals.com. I hope to see you there. I got to tell you, I'm loving this group. I just founded it in January, and we're growing in leaps and bounds. And just this past Tuesday night, I had my guest coach was an expert on LinkedIn and how to use it to prospect and sell more. And in May, I've got a coach who's, this is perfect for you and me. She's going to come and talk about head trash and how to get rid of it.
I love that.
Yeah, she's fantastic. Judy Kane.
I'm writing her name down. Judy Kane.
Kane. Yeah, I met her through networking, and she offered to do a session for me. And it was just astounding. The cool thing is, we developed this head trash over time, and it sits in our head, and it tells, it's that little voice that's constantly talking to us. And she goes, Jeff, I can get rid of head trash in like 3 minutes. I'm like, okay, sure. Let's give that a try. I mean, she's miraculous. So it's going to be very, very cool.
I'm super excited.
Let's move on. You actually brought this up earlier, and I said I was going to talk about it. Just yesterday, you posted on LinkedIn something that is absolutely near and dear to me, which is cold DMs on LinkedIn, where people are immediately pitching you on their product or service. You accept their LinkedIn connection, and boom, you got a DM saying, for me, Jeff, let me tell you how coaches, I help coaches like you get lots and lots of leads with no investment whatsoever, and it takes no time. Okay, yeah, sounds great. Nothing turns me off faster. It's awful. What can we do instead? Is there a way to craft a warm DM that doesn't turn people off?
Yeah, I think so. And I have implemented it myself. So I know it works. Excuse me. And that is, well, first, before we get into that, what I find interesting is the people that actually send a DM, an influencer actually on LinkedIn who sent me a DM, who is not a salesperson, but wanted to teach me how to do better sales. She didn't even look into the fact that I am a sales coach. So why would you send me that kind of DM? But that's the crazy type of messages that we get. So how do you do a warm DM? Well, first, and yes, there is a way. There is a way to do that. It's easy. And it is really just about getting to know your prospects, right? Go on their LinkedIn profile, understand what they do, who they engage with, what the services are they're selling. That's one way. Or the second way is, well, you do that anyway, but the second focus is really on their content, getting engaged on their comments. Then when you move them over to DM, it's like a logical transition over there. I mean, I think of it, I even did this video yesterday, I think, where I talked about when you have a conversation with your friend, and you should think of prospecting as a friendship. You're developing a friendship. When you're on the phone with someone, I mean, Jeff and I, we're having a conversation here. When we get off, when we're done with this StreamYard session, I bet you there are going to be 20 million things that we thought of that we wish we could have asked, or that we could have, and we could easily then send an email, send a DM and say, hey, here's what I was thinking, or maybe we could collaborate on this, or hey, I have a question. Can you help me with this? That's a natural transition from this StreamYard over to the DMs or an email. You take that same concept as a friendship, as you would in a friendship, and you engage with them in their content, and then you move that over then to the DMs. Now, yes, there is a strategy to that. There is a way to construct it, but essentially it's taking that conversation and moving it into the DMs. It then becomes, so it does mean it takes a little bit longer, may take 1, 2, or 3 extra DMs before you get to then having a conversation around what you offer, but you've done it in a way that is less invasive and that fosters a conversation before you get there. So it naturally comes up.
Yeah. My favorite are the ones that, like you, hey, I'd love to teach you how to sell. Really? Did you look at what I do for a living? Or, dear Mrs. Goldberg, I don't know. Did you look at my profile? I mean, I may not look like the most manly man, but I'm pretty sure I don't look like a woman. People are just out of their minds. And one of our regular listeners, who's an outstanding trainer in cold calling, says, I thought you quit sales and went into comedy. Well, not quite yet. Hollywood has not called yet, but I'm ready, Pete. I'm ready. One of the things that
snort, sorry.
You snorted? Oh, well, as a comedian, that's what we wait for. We love when people snort. We love when people spit their nose, their drink through their nose. We love when people are holding their sides. That's absolutely the best. That's the goal. Get on stage and make them choke from laughing so hard.
That's awesome.
One of the things that almost all sellers want to do is differentiate themselves. And it's crucial, especially in a very commoditized sell. But for any of us, we need to differentiate. How can we differentiate at a first meeting?
I think you just have to be your authentic self. I mean, your differentiator right now. So put sales aside, just when you're engaging with someone, it's the authenticity that you bring, right? And so that also means that you have to come with a servant mindset. You also have to come with a need or a desire to want to know more about them before you share so much about yourself, right? And I think those are what create that authenticity that make you different from the rest of those people. Now, when you talk about sales, it's the differentiator is not going in and pitching, but going in trying to solve to their problems. So asking them what their problems are first and not just assuming. You know, my biggest pet peeve is when people make assumptions. In fact, I was on a call yesterday where someone did that, and it so irritated me because, first off, if you just asked one more question, you could have personalized a bit more instead of just making a quick assumption, right? And if you'd have taken that question, personalized it, you'd have won me over. Instead, you just lost me for good, period, because you just assumed. And that's the problem with salespeople today. So I think it's all about authenticity and making sure that you're leading with a servant mind and asking questions rather than making assumptions. So that was actually a lot to your answer. It wasn't so simple. Sorry. I mean, your question. Sorry.
I particularly love, well, I love everything you're saying, but I particularly love when you say one more question. And I find so often that people they're not listening, because if they did, they would know what that next question is. And I can't resist giving an example, which I know I've given before. So if you're a longtime listener, you can just rest for about 25 seconds. So I don't really do this much anymore, but I used to ride in the field with clients' sales teams. You know, I'd actually watch them on sales calls and coach them afterwards. And I worked with a company called Boston Mutual, which is a provider of life insurance,
right.
Roamed all around the country. I think they had like 42 salespeople, and I went to every office. And I'm all around the country, back in Boston, riding on my very last sales call with one of their salespeople. And these salespeople do not sell life insurance. They talk to brokers to try to get the brokers to sell their life insurance as opposed to anybody else's. So we get in there, and the guy does a good job of establishing rapport with the broker. And then he asks what I consider a really good question. Whose insurance do you recommend most often? Which I thought, great question.
Mm-hmm, yep.
And the guy immediately said, Unum, UNUM. It's
I know Unum, yep.
Okay. And then the sales rep went on to a completely unrelated question. Now, When I go into the field with salespeople, my promise to management is I'm not going to say a word. I'm going to say, nice to meet you when we walk in. I'm going to say it was a pleasure meeting you when we walk out. But if a prospect looks at me and says, hey, what do you think, Jeff? I'll go, well, what do you think, Bob? Because it's not my job to close the deal for them. It's my job to observe and coach them afterwards. But in this particular case, when the guy said, what do you sell the most of? And the guy said, Unum, and he went on to a completely unrelated question. My stomach actually turned into a knot. And I'm a very calm guy. I know I speak excitedly, but I meditate. I'm very calm. But my stomach went, ooh. And I said, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but why do you sell Unum more than anybody else? I mean, it was just so obvious.
That was the obvious next question.
How do you not ask that question? It was like I wanted to strangle the guy. I couldn't believe it. And the best part was his answer, which was, oh, that's the guy who visits me the most often. He takes me out to lunch once a week. Want this guy to sell more of your product? Take him out to lunch.
All you have to do. He just told you what you have to do.
Exactly.
So did you talk to the rep then afterwards and ask him why he went in that direction? Well, I'm sure you did. You coached him, but what was his response to why he even went in that direction? What was it that caused him to fear?
It wasn't why he went in that direction. It was like, why did you not ask that question? He goes, you're right. That was a really good one. I should have been paying attention. Yeah. He's thinking of his next thing that he's going to say instead of listening to the answer and coming up with the next question. I mean, I really don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to do this. It was so painfully obvious to me. And the fact is I'm very good at sales, but it's not because I'm a genius. It's because I studied it and I actually care about people. You said something which I think is so important. It's that service mentality. Look, I need to make money just like every other salesperson, but I don't go in about, damn, I got to close some business so I can pay the bills. Fortunately, I do okay, and I'm not worried about paying the bills. But I come in with, I sure hope I can help this person. I'm going to do my very best to do it, and I'm going to find out if I can. And if I can, I'm going to share that with them. And by the way, if I don't think I can, I'm going to let them know that too. I'm not really right for you. Let me introduce you to my friend Denise. She's fantastic with what you're looking for. But it's that coming from service, which Zig Ziglar used to promote all the time. Sales is about serving, serve it. If you're truly coming from that place, then you will listen to what people are saying instead of, okay, you answered that question. Here's the next one on my list.
Which, by the way, everyone goes into sales because they think they can make a lot of money. And yes, you can make a lot of money in sales, but you're never going to make a lot of money in sales if you aren't going in with a servant mindset, period. I mean, if you're not willing to, that means, because if you are only going in to close business, you are not uncovering all the information that you need. You're not getting to a negotiation that's a win-win. You're just in it for the wrong reasons, and you're not going to work the process as you should in order to get more deals. So you aren't going to make any more money because you aren't doing it the way that you should do.
Yeah, I find most salespeople go into it by accident. I did. I actually swore I would never go into sales. My father, my stepfather, and both grandfathers were career salespeople. None of them ever made a living. I dropped out of college because I took a part-time job at a furniture store a block away because I wasn't really caring about anything that I was learning in college. And I was learning so much more in the business world that I stopped working there. But I didn't go into the furniture store as a salesperson. I was the customer service rep and ordering and stuff like that. And one day, one of the salespeople didn't show up. And my boss looked at me and goes, Jeff, go sell those people. There were people in our lobby waiting to take a tour of the showroom. I'm like, I don't know how to sell. What are you talking about? Literally, this is what he did. He goes, walk around, smile out. And for those of you who are listening, I'm holding up my fingers on my face to make it smile. He actually pointed to his face, smile a lot, listen to what they're looking for, write it down, bring it back to me. I'll give you the pricing. That's sales. Swore I would never go into sales. And 48 years later, not only am I still selling, I teach other people how to sell because I do love serving people. And as you said, it's an incredibly great way to make a ton of money if you're good at it, if you come from that right mentality and you actually learn how to do it.
Yeah.
What is humane sales? HUMAIN sales?
Well, so I was trying to come up with this new name for a newsletter, a catchy one. And if I think about what I talk about, it's bringing AI, sales, and humanity together. And so it's human AI, human AI is really what that focus is. So it's HUMAIN, so human AI. Yeah, so you do a better job of that than I do. Anyway, yeah, so that was how do we bring all of those together? That was really, and so it's human AI sales.
And that's your newsletter.
It is.
Oh, we've got another question for you. Isaac Lichtenstadter says, can you share more AI tools for workflow?
Yeah, so I'm very tool agnostic, and it's really about what tool is most beneficial for yours organization or your needs based on your requirements. But I will say there are a lot of great automation workflow tools out there like Outreach. You can use Salesforce.com now has their own sales automation. There's a multitude of various, there's flow.ai, I think. There's a whole bunch of tools. But if you're interested, we can have a conversation. I can understand your requirements, and then I can share with you a list of tools that you might want to check out.
Hang in there, Isaac. Before we end, I'll ask Denise to give out her contact information so you can find her easily. I think everybody, when they think of AI, they just think ChatGPT, which it did become the most famous one. It was really the big one first, but there's so many. I mean, if you just Google AI tools, you'll find lists of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them.
Thousands.
There's more every day, every single day. I think what people really need to focus on, find the couple of tools that you're comfortable with. And then what they really need to do is learn how to be a prompt engineer. Because to me, it's really about just like in sales, it's about how do you ask the right question and build on the answer by asking the next question, because AI will give you exactly what you want if you tell it what to do.
Yes, agreed.
Is cold calling dead? And if it is, what should we be doing instead?
Yeah, so I'm taking the strategy of doing all inbounding. So I don't believe in cold calling. I also don't think, if we look at the success rates and even in the conversations, if you look at reports, they're less than 2% success rate. And if you talk with those who have adopted it, who do really good, I mean, the highest success rate is 9%. Do I think it's completely dead? I don't know that it's completely dead. I think it is for me. I won't leverage cold calling because I don't think, if I'm going to spend my energies, why am I going to spend my energies on something that's only going to be upwards to 9% return on investment? And that's if I'm really, really good. And quite honestly, I'm not that great at cold calling. I can do it. I have no fear. I don't mind picking up the phone. I can have a list. I can go after them, but that's not my area of expertise. So why am I going to waste that much energy when I can focus on warm calls? And so I focused on all warm calls, which means it does take a bit longer, but a bit is maybe just 1 or 2 or 3 steps more. It's just having those warm conversations rather than having a cold one. Because the reality is most don't want to answer the phone. And if they do answer, they don't really want to listen to you pitch to them. Just what do you think? Do you think it's dead?
I don't think it's dead for me, but
Yes.
only because, like you, I'm focused on inbound, and I still do it once a month just to make sure that when people want me to teach them how to do it, that what I'm teaching them is still working.
Yes.
But I'd rather live in my car than have to ever cold call again. I built my business by cold calling because 18, 19 years ago when I left the company I was working for, the sales training company I was working for, and opened up my own, none of these AI tools were around. Social media wasn't really developed yet. So there was nothing to do but sit on the phone all day. I do believe that for many salespeople, not all, it can be a valuable part of what I call a blended approach to prospecting.
Correct.
I don't think there's anybody who's going to get enough appointments just by cold calling today. And I think there are other things that you can do that will produce a better result. But I think it can be valuable if you're sending emails and using LinkedIn outreach and cold calling. And I personally, by the way, love direct mail today because almost nobody does it anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's what you said it before. It's 15 to 20 touch points needed before somebody even responds to you. So rather than make 20 cold calls or 20 emails, I like a blended approach. So I think for some people, it can be very valuable. And Pete Ekstrom, who actually is an expert at teaching people how to do it, says cold calling is not dead. It's just no longer a viable, cost-effective go-to-market strategy.
Well, and something else that when we're talking go-to-market, that's really a marketing term, right? And if I think about cold calling, if you're in an organization where you have a marketing team, I think that's where you can spend shift most of the focus on cold calling to the marketing team. If you're an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, it's a little bit harder. You have to take on the role of both the marketer and the salesperson. So, and delineating those different strategies sometimes can be a little bit more difficult. But if you've got a marketing team, allow them to do the cold calling. And the reality is, in order to get inbounding, you have to build some credibility and visibility. So cold calling is a way that you can do that. So I don't think it's necessarily totally dead. I just think the way we leverage it should be it should be very different than the way we leveraged it, like you said, 19 years ago, for me, even 6 years ago, really, before the pandemic, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all I did was sit on the phone all day because there was nothing else to do. But it
Mhm.
was much easier to get through to people then. Not easy, but certainly much easier. And there were less options. So I really had no choice. But I became good at doing other things as quickly as I possibly could, so that I could give up cold calling. But here's why: I want every call to sound like this. So if you were a VP of sales and I wanted to sell you sales training and I got your number and you actually picked up the phone or called me back and we spoke, I want it to sound like this. Hey, Denise, this is Jeff Goldberg from Jeff Goldberg and Associates. And you say, stop right there. I've heard about you. I know you're so damn good that you're going to get an appointment from me. And I know once you get out here, you're going to sell me. Why don't I save us both some time and just send you a check right now?
That would be
Except,
ideal, right?
yeah, except they don't go like that, do they,
No,
Denise?
no, they don't. That would be in an ideal world, yes.
Right. But if you want to learn how to cold call, Pete Ekstrom, who just made that point, is terrific. Jason Bay, I don't know if you know him. He's fantastic, young guy. He just changed the name of his company. It used to be Blissful Prospecting. I think it's called the Cold Call Squad or something like that. But they're true experts who can teach you if you want that to be part of your strategy. A couple of weeks ago, you posted a video of a guy who was masterfully doing pottery. And you wondered how many of us have actually mastered the art and science of selling. What suggestions do you have for people who may be okay at selling, but really want to become masters? What should we be doing to become masterful?
Investing in yourself first and foremost. I mean, I know you talk about the fact that there are tons of sales tools out there that are free. I mean, you have YouTube, there are so many ways you can invest. I always believe, and it took me a long time to understand this, but I always believe that you should hire a coach to help you as well, because the tools that you, or the videos that you watch are just generic videos. They may be a specific niche or a specific topic, but they're still generic and don't necessarily always apply to you. Because once you've learned that information, now how do you practically put it into practice, right? I think that's probably the harder part, having a coach. But I think it all boils down to whether you pay someone or whether you leverage free tools. It's about really investing in yourself, which means that you have to, in order to invest in yourself, you have to be honest with yourself and understand where your challenges are, where your strengths are, whether or not those challenges are worth spending the time in. I had someone who recommended once to me that, why would you spend so much time in improving your challenges when you can spend more time focusing on the things that you're really good at and getting even better? So leveraging or determining which one of those you really want to spend the time in, and then being open to actually learning. And I think that's probably, we get these, I just went to a sales conference last week. I'm a sales trainer and I went to a sales conference, but I did that because I still have to continuously learn. I'm not so egotistical enough to think that I'm the greatest. Sure, I think I'm great. Otherwise, I wouldn't be selling a service, right? But I'm not the greatest person out there. We all know that I don't do cold calling super well. I can do it. So I'm going to leverage, if I need to cold call, I'm going to leverage someone else, like Isaac that you mentioned, or someone else in my community that I know. I mean, we have to be honest with ourselves, be open, and be willing to learn. And then we've got to invest in ourselves, whether that's financially or our time. But somehow we've got to do a better job at elevating our skills. And we can only do that when we have those three things that we consider.
Completely agree. I mean, look, there are certain qualities and characteristics and traits that mean if you have them, you're more likely to succeed in sales. And by the way, if you don't have them, it doesn't mean that you won't succeed. But what really makes the difference is exactly what you just said. It's investing in yourself. I'm always complimented when people are like, oh my God, you're so good at selling. Thank you so much. Except I treated it always as a career, not a job. It was like, all right, if this is what I'm going to do, and I did fall into it by accident, but I saw that, oh man, I actually have a talent for this. But I've been to a million seminars like you, and I read I'm still reading books when they come out. Like I read almost every sales book that comes out, because like you, I don't know everything. And things change so quickly today that you've got to stay on top of the most current things while reinforcing the things that you're already doing. And I love what you said about improving on your strong points. I think most coaches agree that you're probably going to get way more mileage out of taking your strengths and making them stronger than fixing your weaknesses. Now, I like to work on both, but if you're already good at something, if you can make that better, sometimes it's that 1% difference that means making a heck of a lot more money, serving more people and making a heck of a lot more money.
Which, by the way, when you take that 1% and you take that challenge to improve 1% daily or weekly, cumulatively, that really compounds to a lot of significant change, right? And so if it's just a little bit every day or just a little bit every week, you're still doing more than most people. And at the end of the year, you'll be able to see the difference that you've made within yourself when you take on that desire to want to improve that 1%.
Yep. Tony Robbins, who I'm a very big fan of, not his sales training, I think it sucks, but his motivational stuff. I mean, he's a genius at that stuff. And he talks about CANI, C-A-N-I, which is constant and never ending improvement. You know, and it doesn't have to be every day. If you just improve a little bit once a week, a tiny little bit once a week, let's say you take 2 weeks vacation, that's still 50 weeks of improvement, 50 little things. How could you do 50 little bit pieces of improvement and not be better at the end of a year? You can't. So it doesn't take quantum leaps. And sometimes we get lucky, we get those quantum leaps, but a little bit better each week, each month, you're scoring. It's crazy not to. I'm a little concerned about this last one, this last question, because I go to people's LinkedIn profiles and sometimes they don't remember something they posted. So I'm hoping you'll remember this. What can we learn from selling from a video of a dog walking off his leash?
And that was because when we let the buyer take control of the process, right? They don't actually know what the process is and they do a really crappy job. And so we end up not getting the deal closed. So when we let the buyers go awry, like the dog did without the leash, they're kind of on their own. And now you've lost control of the sales process because they think they know and they don't actually really know, right? So that was my concept for relating it back to that video.
Do you want to maybe describe what the video showed? Because it was so cute.
Yeah, so the video was a handler or a person. She was walking the dog and the dog kind of went off his own leash and she was just kind of standing there. If I recall, it was a while ago, but if I recall, she was just standing there and the dog kind of went on his own and didn't know what to do. And then eventually came back because with the leash in his mouth, right? I think it was in his mouth. But anyway, the dog was trying to get the leash back to the handler or the owner.
Yeah, because I just saw it this morning. It was so cute. So she actually takes the dog off the leash and he's standing there like, what do I do now? And she clipped the leash to her.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And
okay.
She gave the dog the other end of the leash and he was walking her because he didn't know what to do without the leash on. It was
hey, look, you know my content better than I do, but I remembered what I was trying to convey in that message.
I love it. I don't have a document that I can share, but could you share with people who are interested in getting in touch with you? What are the best ways to reach you?
LinkedIn.
This will be, by the way, there's some people watching us live, but this will be converted to a podcast. So for those who can't, please give us the best ways to reach you.
Yeah, really just on LinkedIn. That's where I spend all of my time. If I'm not on the phone with clients, if I'm not in a coaching session, if I'm not, crafting my next offering or my next messaging, I'm on LinkedIn. So you can always find me there. I've got lives Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Yes, I am all in. It is a bit crazy. And I'm generating content almost every day. So you can DM me, you can engage in my comments or in my content, or you can join me on my lives. I'm everywhere on LinkedIn.
You want to give out a website?
Yes, you can go to cellivators.com. But again, go to my LinkedIn. That's where you're going to find everything.
Perfect. Any final words of wisdom for sellers?
Yeah, the only thing I would leave everyone with is just practice this in daily activities. Just be curious, actively listen, and then be audible ready. So be able to shift the conversation or your next question based on the things that were just answered in the questions that you guys or in the conversation you just had. Be yourself and create this conversation with them so that they want to do business with you.
I love that. Denise Murtha Bachmann, thank you so much for sharing your brilliance so generously with us. I truly appreciate it. And I think that we've got to have you back pretty regularly because AI does change so quickly. And I'll end as I always do, my friends. Please remember that sales is a game of making things happen. So get out there and make sales happen. Have a great weekend. Denise, have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks so much. See you next week.
Thank you.